Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Ήδη τέθηκαν τα πρώτα πολύ βασικά σημεία από την πολιτική ηγεσία. Πάμε τώρα να δούμε την ευρωπαϊκή διάσταση λειτουργίας των γεωλογικών Ινστιτούτων ή γεωλογικών αρχών, όπως είναι η ΕΑΓΜΕ. Ακολουθεί η μαγνητοσκοπημένη συζήτηση one-to-one που είχαμε με την δόκτορα Τζούλι Hollis, που είναι Γενική Γραμματέας του οργανισμού EuroGeoSurveys, που είναι ο Ευρωπαϊκός Οργανισμός Γεωλογικών Υπηρεσιών, που είναι ένας διεθνής μη κερδοσκοπικός οργανισμός που εκπροσωπεί τις Εθνικές Γεωλογικές Υπηρεσίες και τα Γεωλογικά Ινστιτούτα 37 ευρωπαϊκών χωρών. Σε αυτές τις ευρωπαϊκές χώρες είναι μέσα και η χώρα μας, εννοείται, και η ΕΑΓΜΕ, με πολύ δυναμική παρουσία και ενεργό ρόλο, καθότι είναι αντιπρόεδρος του EuroGeoSurveys σήμερα ο κύριος Γενικός Διευθυντής της ΕΑΓΜΕ, κύριος Διονύσιος Γκούτης. Πάμε να δούμε τι μας είπε η δόκτωρ Τζούλι Χόλις για την ευρωπαϊκή διάσταση του υπεδάφους και των γεωλογικών υπηρεσιών. Ευχαριστούμε.
Καλώς ήρθατε σε αυτήν την πολύ ιδιαίτερη session one-to-one, καθώς έχουμε τη μεγάλη τιμή και χαρά να έχουμε μαζί μας τη Γενική Γραμματέα του Ινστιτούτου EuroGeoSurveys, που είναι ένας μεγάλος οργανισμός που εδρεύει στις Βρυξέλλες και εκπροσωπεί τα Εθνικά Γεωλογικά Ινστιτούτα και τις υπηρεσίες 37 ευρωπαϊκών χωρών. Σε αυτόν τον οργανισμό, η ΕΑΓΜΕ και η χώρα μας έχει έναν πολύ κομβικό ρόλο. Να υπενθυμίσω ότι το EGS, που είναι το ακρονίμιο του Ευρωπαϊκού Πυλώνα για τη Γεωλογική Γνώση, συντονίζει τη συνεργασία μεταξύ εθνικών φορέων για την παροχή αξιόπιστων και επιστημονικών δεδομένων στα όργανα της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης και σε διεθνείς οργανισμούς. Οπότε καταλαβαίνουμε ότι έχει έναν πολύ κεντρικό ρόλο στις γεωπολιτικές εξελίξεις που βρίσκονται σε εξέλιξη στην Ευρώπη αλλά και στο διεθνές σκηνικό. Θα ήθελα να σημειώσω σε αυτό το σημείο ότι η χώρα μας έχει ένα πολύ κομβικό ρόλο που αποδεικνύεται από το ρόλο του Γενικού Διευθυντή της ΕΑΓΜΕ, του κ. Διονυσίου Γκούτη, που έχει εκλεγεί αντιπρόεδρος του EuroGeoSurveys και μελλοντικά έχει πολύ ενεργό ρόλο. Πάμε λοιπόν τώρα να ξεκινήσουμε τη συζήτησή μας με την Dr. Julie Hollis, τη Γενική Γραμματέα του EuroGeoSurveys. Welcome to this special session, to our conference. Thank you for your time and thank you for being positive for having you here. Today we are diving deep into the literal foundation of Europe's future, our subsurface. As the continent navigates an era of unprecedented green and digital transformation, the need for unified, harmonized geological data has never been more critical. To help us unpack this, we are deeply honored to welcome a leading voice in European geosciences. Joining us today is Dr. Julie Hollis, the Secretary General of EuroGeoSurveys. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure.
We can start with our questions, right?
Yes, please go ahead.
Let's start with a big picture. Dr. Hollis, in an era defined by intense political shifts and escalating climate anxiety, the subsurface has emerged as a front line of strategic autonomy. How do you define the modern societal and geopolitical role of geological surveys today? Specifically, how does harmonized geological knowledge act as a foundation for Europe's twin green and digital transition?
Thank you. I think that one of the most important changes that we've seen in recent years is that geology has moved from being perceived as a largely technical discipline to one that is more strategic. When we talk about geopolitical resilience today, we often discuss energy security, critical raw materials, water resources, climate adaptation, industrial competitiveness, and defense preparedness. And what all of these things have in common is that they depend fundamentally on the subsurface. The subsurface is Europe's hidden infrastructure. It contains the resources that we need for the green and digital transition. It stores our groundwater, it provides opportunities for geothermal energy, and it offers the potential for carbon capture and storage. At the same time, it's also where many of our natural hazards originate, from earthquakes and landslides to coastal subsidence, for example. And this means that geological surveys have a unique societal role. We're not simply producers of maps or custodians of geological archives. We're providers now of strategic intelligence that helps governments, industries, and communities make informed decisions about the future. The geopolitical dimension that you mentioned is also very important. Europe's ambition to achieve greater strategic autonomy requires a much deeper understanding of its own geological assets and capabilities. We cannot manage what we do not know. Whether we're discussing critical raw materials for batteries and semiconductors, or secure water supplies, or underground energy storage, reliable geological knowledge is the foundation for informed decision making. This is also why harmonization is critical, because geology does not stop at national borders. Aquifers cross borders, geological basins cross borders. But historically, our geological information has been collected according to national standards and priorities. Through EuroGeoSurveys, we're working together across borders to create a shared geological knowledge base. And when data are harmonized, they become more valuable. Policymakers can compare information across Europe, investors can make decisions with more confidence, researchers can develop better models, and then ultimately citizens are better informed. Harmonization contributes to our ability to understand the ground beneath our feet. The challenge for Europe is therefore not simply to accelerate the green and digital transitions, but to ensure those transitions are grounded in robust scientific evidence. And geological surveys provide that evidence. They help transform uncertainty into knowledge and knowledge into action. That's why I believe that the role of geological surveys today is more relevant than ever. We're helping Europe understand, manage, and safeguard one of our most valuable strategic assets, the geological subsurface.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hollis. That link between strategic autonomy and data is vital, and it highlights how deeply geology impacts our everyday lives, which brings us to the next question. EuroGeoSurveys recently emphasized that every day we rely on geology to strengthen Europe's resilience, from governments designing micro-policies to citizens making daily choices. What is your view on what we must collectively do to support climate action? And looking at the communication side, how can we better bridge the gap between complex geoscientific data and actionable public awareness?
Yes, one of the messages we have been communicating through EuroGeoSurveys is very simple. Every day we rely on geology. Sometimes people think of geology as something distant from their daily lives, but in reality, geology affects almost everything around us. The water we drink, the materials in the technologies we use, our energy systems, and increasingly our responses to climate change. All of these depend on geological understanding. When we talk about climate action, we often focus on emissions reduction, which is of course essential, but we also need to focus on resilience and adaptation. Climate change is, as we know, already affecting Europe. We are seeing more droughts, floods, heat waves, coastal impacts, and understanding the subsurface is vital for addressing all of those challenges. Groundwater, for example, is one of Europe's most important resources and is heavily impacted by climate change. Geothermal energy can contribute to decarbonisation while strengthening energy security. Geological formations can safely store carbon dioxide and help us achieve net zero targets. And nature-based solutions often depend on understanding soil and geological conditions. So my view is that climate action requires us to think much more holistically about the Earth system, including the geological subsurface. But as you mentioned, there's another challenge. We have extraordinary amounts of scientific information, but there is often a gap between knowledge and action. Part of our responsibility as geological surveys is to make geoscientific information more accessible, more understandable and relevant. Citizens do not necessarily need to know every technical detail of a geological model. What they need to know is how geology relates to the issues that concern them directly: water security, affordable energy, climate resilience, public safety. This means that we need to communicate more effectively. We need better visualization tools, clearer storytelling, stronger engagement, for example, with schools, universities, public authorities, and close collaboration with policymakers and communities. We need to move beyond simply publishing data. We have to have direct engagement and also provide decision support tools that can translate complex information into practical options. Of course, digital technologies are helping us to do that. Digital twins, artificial intelligence, interoperable data platforms, and modern visualization methods can make geological information more accessible to non-specialists. And geological surveys are and should be developing and using those tools. Ultimately, public awareness grows when people understand what the relevance is to them, when they recognize that geology affects their water supply, their energy bills, their local environment, their resilience as communities. Then geology becomes part of everyday conversations about climate action. Our role is to make that connection more visible. The science already exists. The challenge is ensuring that it can be understood and be used by people who need it.
Mhm. So it is truly about real human connections and about making that data speak to people and policymakers alike. Now, looking to the future structure of this cooperation, the transition towards a permanent geological service for Europe, the GSE, is a major milestone for the continent. Could you share the immediate next steps and strategic plans for the GSE? Additionally, with the recent EuroGeoSurveys position paper from this June calling for subsurface integrated spatial planning, how will this new framework optimize competent uses like geothermal energy, carbon storage, and groundwater protection?
The Geological Service for Europe is, in my view, one of the most important developments in European geoscience in recent years. For many years, Europe's geological surveys have collaborated successfully through EuroGeoSurveys and through numerous European projects. What we're now doing is we are aiming to take the next step, moving from project-based collaboration towards a more permanent operational European geological capability. The vision is quite straightforward. Europe faces long-term challenges that require long-term geological intelligence on critical raw materials, groundwater security, geothermal energy, carbon storage, geohazards, and climate resilience. All of these require sustained data acquisition, monitoring, harmonized approaches, and coordinated expertise. The Geological Service for Europe is designed to provide that. The immediate next steps involve now establishing the Geological Service for Europe as the service arm of EuroGeoSurveys and building a service portfolio on the foundation of the work that we have already done through our 5-year collaborative Geological Service for Europe project. This includes setting up the operational framework, securing political and financial support, and demonstrating the value of coordinated pilot geological services to European policymakers and stakeholders. And this includes services such as a proposed raw materials service to complement and significantly increase the impact of the national exploration programs to drive exploration investment in Europe, supporting implementation of the Critical Raw Materials Act. It also includes proposals to use the Geoenergy Atlas developed in the GSEU project as a means to develop a future European investable atlas product for geothermal deployment, supporting implementation of the Net Zero Industry Act and the Renewable Energy Directive. And it includes using the European groundwater monitoring database we've developed, again through the GSEU project, to support implementation of European water resilience strategies. The breadth of thematics and sectors that we're aiming to tackle through geological services collaboratively brings me to the concept of subsurface integrated spatial planning, which EuroGeoSurveys, as you mentioned, highlighted in our recent position paper. Historically, spatial planning has focused on the surface, but the subsurface is becoming increasingly crowded. For example, we may wish to use the same geological basin for geothermal energy production, groundwater abstraction, carbon dioxide storage, energy storage infrastructure, and environmental protection. So without coordination, these activities can compete with each other. Subsurface integrated spatial planning provides a framework for managing competing demands in a coherent way. It enables policymakers to understand where activities are compatible, where conflicts might arise, and how to optimize use of subsurface resources while protecting the environment and societal interests. In practice, this means moving from a sector-by-sector decision-making approach towards an integrated decision-making approach. And this brings me back again to the Geological Service for Europe and where this can make a real difference. By providing harmonized geological information, common methodologies, and cross-border perspectives, the Geological Service for Europe can support evidence-based planning at European, national, and regional levels. Ultimately, the Geological Service for Europe is about stewardship. It's about helping Europe manage its subsurface as a strategic resource for current and future generations. And I believe that it will become increasingly important as demands on the subsurface continue to grow.
Managing those interests is going to be the great challenge for the coming decade. Since we are hosting this discussion here in Athens, let's bring the focus to our host nation. Greece, with its unique geological setting, sits as a crucial crossroad for Europe's critical raw material strategy, geothermal potential, and geohazard monitoring. As we gather here for our second conference, how do you evaluate the contribution of the Hellenic Survey of Geology and Mineral Exploration to the European Geological Network, and what specific opportunities do you see for Greece in the scaling up of the Geological Service for Europe?
First of all, I'm very pleased to be speaking on behalf of EuroGeoSurveys at this conference, and I regret that I'm not able to be there in person. Greece occupies an important position in Europe's geological landscape. Its geology is exceptionally diverse, shaped by active tectonic processes, complex mineral systems, and it has significant geothermal resources, for example. Because of this, Greece contributes expertise and knowledge that are highly valuable to the entire European geological community. HSGME has long been active and a respected member of EuroGeoSurveys. It is one of our founding member organizations and contributes scientific excellence, regional expertise, and practical experience across areas that are increasingly important across Europe. Many of the challenges that Europe is now addressing at continental scale, for example, coastal processes, groundwater pressures, and sustainable resource development, have been part of Greece's realities for decades. As Europe strengthens its critical raw materials strategy, Greece is particularly well positioned to contribute. The country's geological potential, combined with strong scientific expertise, creates opportunities to support Europe's efforts to diversify and secure supply chains. At the same time, Greece has significant geothermal potential as Europe seeks to decarbonize its energy systems while improving energy security. Geothermal resources will become increasingly important, and Greece has much to offer in this area. Geohazard monitoring is another field where Greece provides valuable leadership. The knowledge developed through monitoring seismic and volcanic activity contributes not only to national resilience, but also to broader European understanding of natural hazards and risk management. Looking ahead to the Geological Service for Europe, I see tremendous opportunities for Greece and for HSGME, not least because the Director General of HSGME, Mr. Dionysios Gloutis, will become the next president of EuroGeoSurveys in 2027, which is also the year we expect to inaugurate the Geological Service for Europe as the service arm of EuroGeoSurveys. He has strong support in EuroGeoSurveys, and I have no doubt that he will provide excellent leadership to the European geoscience community. The Geological Service for Europe will create stronger connections between national expertise and European scale services. It will allow knowledge generated in Greece to contribute more directly to European decision making, while also giving Greek stakeholders access to a broader European knowledge base. Most importantly, it will reinforce the principle that Europe's geological challenges and opportunities are shared. No single country can address them alone. By working together through the European Geological Service for Europe, we can combine national strengths into a truly European capability. Greece, through HSGME, has a key role to play in shaping that future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hollis. Your insights clearly demonstrate that Europe's transition cannot happen without a strong and unified geological foundation, and it's inspiring to see the vital role that both the GSC and national surveys like EAGME and their cooperation in a European framework can play in that future. Thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your vision with us. And thank you to our audience for joining us for this insightful session. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.